What is going on? Could it be that there are Xu Tianding in the world? It turns out that, on the way to Dajin, Han Li encountered a large number of Tuwu people. The reason was to kill. After killing a few of them, he was heavily injured and managed to escape. Now there are two major reasons for the Tuwu people. Later modifications, and a midterm Tianlansanus among the reasons. Since it is to obtain Han Li, what he has cultivated is the method of Jin Chong. He hunts Han Li again. At this moment, the extremely beautiful Tianlansanus is using one eye to carefully observe a small ding in the air, and from this ding, a large amount of blue light is sprayed out, covering a radius of 30 zhong under this treasure. Xu Tianding exclaimed in shock. His face turned pale in an instant. He recognized the small ding at a glance. He hurriedly checked inside his body. His Xu Tianding was safely inside his body, and had not been lost. What is going on? Could it be that there are Xu Tianding in the world? The elastic precision instrument has not yet understood the mystery within. The small ding on his head began to grow wildly under the flickering light. In the blink of an eye, it transformed into a ding with a diameter of 3 to 4 zhong. At the same time, this ding was shattered by the spell of the silver-robed woman. In the blink of an eye, it transformed into a dome with a diameter of about 30 to 40 feet. At the same time, this dome was shattered by the spell of the woman in the silver robe. The dazzling light begins to pierce the eyes. The endless green gauze, sparkling as it rolls out from the top, transforming into a large cloud of gauze, it rushes towards Han Li. Han Li sees this. Without a second thought, she flaps her wings behind her. She is about to transform into an arc of lightning, escaping the range covered by the green light. But at that moment, a low roar like rolling thunder comes from the white mist. The sound is not loud, but an invisible wave instantly sweeps over Han Li. After a few flashes on her silver wings, the arc of lightning silently extinguishes. The Raten tree suddenly loses its effect. What kind of divine ability is this? Han Li hurriedly glances at the misty atmosphere. She sees a faint blue shadow appearing and disappearing. At the edge of the mist, it's hard to tell if it's real or not. At this moment, the shark has already reached the top of the stonefish tent. With no other choice, Han Li can only raise the blue light shield in front of her. This shield transforms into a large expanse of blue light wood. The flies all fly into the air. The sand cloud makes contact with the blue light wings. The green mountain spirit light shines brightly. At the same time, the power of the sand at the front grows tremendously. The enormous sand power is the size of a grinding disc, continuously plummeting down. It smashed heavily onto the light wood. A series of thunderous roars echoed. Although the blue light shield is marvelous, how could it withstand such a powerful impact? In the blink of an eye, the light flickered wildly. The blue light dimmed immensely. Not only that, some of the sand sources suddenly split in two, transforming into two strands of sand glue. Unusually agile, they circled around the light, pouncing towards the box from both sides. Han Li had no time to think and opened his mouth. A small top spurted out from his mouth. He flicked his finger towards the top. A layer of blue ice flame appeared on the surface of the small top. This was the first layer he had practiced. The heavenly top of the Tong Baoju, although it could only utilize the magnetic top and a small portion of micro-energy. But now that it had come to this point, Han Li naturally couldn't care about anything else. He reached out towards the top cover. A piece of blue mist flew out from the top, instantly wrapping his entire body tightly. Han Li spread his hands apart, aimed at the two sand creatures and fired. The appetite surged, splattering, intersecting in all directions, heavily accumulating on the sand creatures. The sounds of puff-puff echoed continuously. Sand sculpture head. Only about 10 thumb-sized holes were shot out. No effect at all. Containing the inner meaning. The body instinctively wants to avoid the stimulation, but feels as heavy as a mountain. Movements are incredibly slow. Cannot act quickly at all. As a result, the sand sculptures suddenly pounced in front. After two muffled thuds, they transformed back into sand clouds, enveloping Han Li's radiant light within, turning into a massive killing force. The silver-robed woman in the rain and wind saw Han Li take out a small cauldron resembling the one in her hand, initially taken aback, but then saw Han Li easily trapped by the scale killing. The character under the sand gold revealed a faint smile. How powerful the spirit killing in the holy cauldron is. He knows it all too well. As long as trapped by this killing, even several great masters cannot escape in a short time. Now the life and death of the opponent is just a thought away for him. After a loud bang, the blue light shield transformed into a light curtain was also shattered and dispersed. falling together with the sand clouds, shining down on Han Li. The sand sculpture immediately grew larger again. Now, this woman felt even more at ease in her heart. Her body moved easily. She lightly stepped down from the giant dome, but she only landed on a flat protrusion beneath the appetite staff. The sand and gravel, that should have solidified like iron, suddenly emitted countless blue lights from its surface. Then, without this woman activating any spells, the sand rolled down and collapsed on its own. It transformed back into a loose state of sand clouds, gently floating in the air, motionless, and at the center of the sand clouds, a dazzling blue mist flickered. Han Li stood in the middle, holding a small dome. She raised her hand and gazed at this woman. The figure of the woman in the silver robe suddenly came to a halt. Her bright eyes were filled with disbelief. Her face turned extremely ugly all of a sudden. A chill ran through her. Han Li's voice echoed. She clapped her hand once. The cover of the void dome, circles of ripple-like blue light, clearly appeared around her. As it spread outwards, wherever the light passed, the green gauze suddenly vanished without a trace, as if it had been swallowed up. The woman witnessed this scene. A great fear in my heart. Hastily, both hands clutched tightly. The scales are about to urge the attack towards Han Li again. However, they remained quietly in place. Not a single reaction. Completely still. The connection with the woman was lost on the divine stone. The woman in the silver robe suddenly became anxious. Suddenly, she stepped on something underfoot. After a series of spins, a burst of medicinal light was ejected. It shot directly towards the top of Han Li's head. Han Li narrowed his eyes. The first layer of the Tongbao technique began to operate. He lifted the small lid over his head. A dragon's roar echoed out. The lid transformed into a blue light and soared into the sky. Then, 5 colored spiritual lights surged from within. The clear light emitted by the sky blue sanus was like rivers flowing into the sea, transforming into a beam of azure mist. In the blink of an eye, it was drawn into the cauldron. The woman in the silver robe was greatly shocked. Han Li also straightened up. Just then, under the sky blue woman's feet, the giant cauldron emitted a strange humming sound. Then, it called out in the clear light, heading towards a red and green light below. The woman in the silver robe turned pale. She hurriedly tried to summon back the giant cauldron with both hands, but the spell failed to work. The golden light completely ignored her. It was directly projected into the small ceiling below, disappeared without a trace. The sky blue single woman was filled with shock and anger. But the matter was not over. The must-have celestial top in Han Li's hand suddenly flew out on its own. After a low spin, the top automatically aimed at the white mist beside it, with flickering rays of light. Suddenly, a voice from the white mist sounded like a Peking opera after sales service. A black shadow shot out from the mist, escaping into the sky. This is the sky blue sacred beast of the cow's hand. But a brilliant blue light burst out from the top. It was hard to believe. The speed caught up with the sky blue beast, instantly enveloping it within. The sky blue beast roared and struggled desperately, but the blue light seemed to be its nemesis. It had no effect at all. Instead, after a spiral, the size of this tree in the light shrank dramatically, being directly taken into the top. The cover spun and then fell back from the air, covering the top again. The Zhang sky blue beast was thus trapped inside the top. These changes happened extremely quickly, all within the blink of an eye. The silver-robed woman, Yurong, turned pale in an instant. It's really hard for her to accept. Clearly, she had the upper hand in the battle. In the blink of an eye, I fell into the abyss. Not only did the opponent break free quickly, but even the top victory and the divine beast's avatar were simultaneously captured. However, this woman is not an ordinary person. With a cold light in her eyes, she immediately focused on the Zushan peak in Han Li's hand. He was very clear about the reason for this drastic change. It was due to this item that was similar to the sacred peak, and judging from the sacred peak's loss of control, this peak must have a deep connection to the sacred peak. Otherwise, such an astonishing transformation wouldn't occur. This peak must be seized. In an instant, the woman made up her mind. Naturally, she was filled with surprise and joy. But seeing the cold light flashing in her eyes, how could she not know what the opponent was planning? She immediately let out a loud laugh. With a gentle flap of her silver wings behind her, she transformed into a silver fox, and appeared several dozen feet away. Without hesitation, she waved at the giant sword. Using her index finger, she quickly created a series of strange hand seals. A clear light flashed around her body, and an astonishing spiritual energy burst forth from her. As she opened her mouth, a stream of blood essence sprayed out, scattering in the wind. transforming into 4 blood-red spiritual lights. In an instant, it turned into a mesmerizing shade of crimson and azure. The exposed hands simultaneously revealed holes. A crimson hue began to emerge. In the blink of an eye, it was as red as blood. The servant knew her well, and amidst the blood dance, Han Li's figure became indistinct. It was alarming to see Han Li's actions. The woman in the silver robe immediately recalled something. With a loud reprimand of new great fortune, both hands raised high, two bursts of silver light shot out, transforming into countless dense silver threads, pouring down like a torrential rain towards Han Li, within a radius of several dozen yards. In an instant, everything was shimmering silver. It was utterly astonishing. But as Han and the giant sword flew back, her figure swayed a few times in the blood mist. A blood shadow shot out, suddenly disappearing into the air. In the next moment, it seemed like there were flashes of blood light in the sky. Han Li's trace was completely gone. The blue-skinned maiden felt a sense of unease. She hurriedly released the divine stone, but just as she found a target 100 miles away, Han Li had once again evaded the limits of her divine stone. The woman's expression turned pale. She remained suspended in the air, motionless, suspended in midair, completely motionless. Meanwhile, in another place thousands of miles away, a green flying wheel swirled around Jinshu's youth, buzzing incessantly for a long time. Looking at the endless grassland below, a strange expression appeared on his face. The wooden escape horse was injured to this extent, yet it could still rely on the power of plants to hide and escape. That sword grinding tool is also quite powerful. The previous desperate struggle was indeed a bit tricky. However, he probably has no strength left to possess. Just a trivial reason caused such serious injuries. At this moment, his limbs should be dissipating and collapsing. Since just now, there has been a bad feeling. Could it be that something happened to the others? This year, his gaze flickered a few times. He whispered a few words, clapped his hands, and glanced in the opposite direction. After pondering for a moment, the ink-dyed 9 wheels merged into one, transforming into a crimson light and fleeing away. And in a certain inconspicuous thicket, a small black sail was planted in the ground, flipping and flashing with black light. A half-foot-sized hole was faintly visible on it, a black thread about an inch in size. The reason lay unconscious within it. Black energy rolled over his body. Zhengjing quietly attracts the pure and subtle understanding hidden within the sail. Self-healer. In another direction, Zifa Ifu painted a scene with his hands and feet. With one arrow, he trapped thousands of cherished beings in an ancient castle. After blocking the thunder pearl that startled him, he easily pierced through to the other side with one arrow, the body of the youth. But, as a result, a flash of light appeared on the opponent's body. Suddenly, it transformed into a charming woman. The white light flickered, and the body turned into tiny specks of light, disappearing without a trace. Ifu couldn't help but stand there in shock. Several towns later, the youthful and elegant youth, Zifa Ifu, and the holy maiden from Tianlai gathered together again. After sharing their respective feelings, they all looked at each other. So, we not only failed to obtain the method of cultivating the golden bug from the opponent, but we also lost the holy cauldron and the holy beast. The youth furrowed his brows, and said in a low voice, "As for the holy cauldron, that's fine. There is still another one within the clan that can summon the holy beast. However, the holy beast's avatar has been taken by that person. This will likely provoke the wrath of the holy beast from the upper realm. We must get it back. This is likely to provoke the wrath of the celestial beast. We must get it back at all costs." The purple-haired beauty said with a not-so-good expression. "This time, I was too careless. I didn't expect this person to have a way to restrain the holy cauldron. That's what led to this incident. Then I'll go to Daking. Let's destroy the holy beast's avatar. Moreover, that little cauldron of theirs is so strange. It can actually control our holy cauldron. This is a serious matter. I suspect that this item is precisely the one that the holy cauldron was modeled after. The true form of the spirit treasure. Otherwise, it cannot explain this matter." The woman in the silver robe appeared unusually serious. She slowly said, "The spirit treasure. It's unlikely, right? Such treasures are not from this generation at all. They should have all been taken to the previous generation. The holy cauldron is also from our abrupt clan, a place with extraordinary talents and powerful immortal masters. They used secret communication to get the imitation method from the other party. How could it possibly be the true form of the spirit treasure, left in the human world?" The purple-haired beauty showed a look of disbelief. "That could be uncertain. Since even the eardrum can appear in the human world, it's possible that several spirit treasures have also been left in the human realm. This is quite uncertain. Since even the eardrum can appear in the human world, occasionally, a few spiritual treasures also remain in the human realm. It's not impossible. The handsome young man shook his head calmly. Upon hearing the words eardrum, the purple-haired beauty and the blue-clad Sanus both changed their expressions. Everyone says how terrifying the ancient demon is. Unfortunately, we few did not have the opportunity to test each other. But this demon's escape technique is truly remarkable. It didn't even confront us directly. Instead, it calmly crossed the grassland and headed to the Great Jing. The beautiful woman with purple hair seemed somewhat unconvinced. That's because this demon was already heavily injured. Furthermore, once it entered the grassland, we just happened to encounter it. We pursued it relentlessly. It was forced to not have time to rest and heal. Otherwise, who knows what kind of trouble it would have caused on the grassland. The young man sighed. A hint of a bitter smile appeared on his face. Regardless of whether that person's treasure is truly a spiritual treasure, he has killed so many of our celestial masters. He also took away the sacred beast. This absolutely cannot be left unpunished. As the Sanus of my clan, it was lost from my hands. I must personally retrieve it. Otherwise, the next time we summon the sacred beast, we won't be able to respond to its inquiries properly. I must personally find it back. Otherwise, when we summon the celestial beast next time, we won't be able to respond to its inquiries properly. The woman in the silver robe said with a gloomy expression. After hearing this, the young man and the beautiful woman exchanged glances. It seemed they communicated their opinions. Since the Sanus is so persistent about this matter, it wouldn't hurt to take a trip to the Great Realm. However, many sects in the Great Mirror have some bias against us. Our ancestral master has some prejudices. It's best for the Sanus not to reveal her identity. After all, with that person's abilities, their influence in the Great Jin should be considerable. We can first go to the Ying Luo sect and see if the other party is truly an elder of the Ying Luo sect. After clarifying their identity, just return to the grassland and inform us. We can all lend you a helping hand. The young man nodded and said this. I understand. That person's abilities are not below mine. I won't act rashly. The woman in the silver robe said with a serious expression. Thus, the three immediately turned back. After the blue-skied remaining woman finished handling some matters, she immediately set off to the Great Jin to find Han Li. Laozhou in the Great Jin is one of the 108 states of the Great Jin, with an area that ranks among the top 10. But unfortunately, most of the region is in a frigid area, covered in snow year-round. Therefore, the population is sparse. The level of wealth ranks in the middle among all states and counties. It can only rank in the lower middle. The Shanzhang River within Laozhou is the second largest river in this state. It is also one of the few rivers that does not freeze. During the flood season, every year at this time, whether it is merchants selling goods or passers-by with urgent matters, they all take boats downstream along the river. This is much more convenient than riding horses or taking cars. And at intervals along the waterway, there are large patrol boats inspecting the river. However, despite this, there are so many passenger boats, and the river is so long. Naturally, there are many desperate individuals who do not mind the risk of execution and family destruction, and dare to take the risk to rob passing ships. Some large ships inevitably need to hire some agile crew members and skilled guards for protection. Wang Tiqiang is just an ordinary guard known for his skills. From his name, it is clear that he naturally has some skill with firearms, but these are secondary. The main thing is, his experience as a bodyguard is truly extensive. Since he started in this line of work as a young man, he has been at it for over 20 years. From a spirited youth, he has transformed into a seasoned veteran who shows no emotion. Now, he stands firmly at the bow of a large ship, one hand resting on the wooden railing. He surveys the passing vessels nearby, his face expressionless. This escort mission, for him, is just a very ordinary task. The only thing a bit special is that the ship's owner is said to be a relative of a certain official. It seems to have some background. Generally speaking, such semi-official escort missions are not something that bandits would easily provoke. It can be considered a relatively easy escort, and as expected, the large ship has traveled most of the journey smoothly, without any disturbances. Now he is contemplating how generous the ship's owner is with the silver, which seems enough to buy his wife and children a few bolts of good fabric and some nice clothing. Thinking of this, in Wang Tijian's mind, couldn't help but recall the appearance of his 7 or 8-year-old son. A smile involuntarily appeared at the corners of his mouth. But just then, a woman's surprised voice suddenly came from one side of the large ship. "Come quick, there's a huge ice block here. It seems like there's someone inside." Upon hearing this, Wang Tijian slightly turned his head. The voice sounded like that of a maid named Huang Ying on the ship. But normally, there might be ice forming on the river. However, during the flood season, there would never be ice blocks. Moreover, considering today's weather, Wang Tijian couldn't help but raise his hand to look at the sky. He saw the blazing sun right at noon. Even though he was only wearing a thin leather coat, he still felt slightly warm, as if he was about to sweat. Furthermore, there was actually someone in that ice. Even after wandering the rivers and lakes for so many years, he had never heard of such a strange thing. He reached out to touch the cool ice pack strapped to his back, and inexplicably lifted his leg, walking towards the source of the sound. As soon as he reached one side of the large ship, he saw at a glance a group of 7 or 8 people gathered there. They were both men and women, along with a maid. The southern Puwan Palace was surrounded in a cluster. They were pointing at something in the river. They seemed to be expressing disapproval. Their gazes were cast sideways with a hint of envy. Sure enough, about 4 or 5 jong away from the side of the boat, there was a white object. It was floating on the surface of the river, extremely eye-catching. If you look closely, it turned out to be a crystal-clear block of ice. Inside, there truly was a figure. It looked like someone was trapped inside. How strange. Could it be that someone from the past fell into the river? And now, as the ice melts, they have floated up from the bottom. Wang Tijian couldn't help but show a look of surprise and muttered, "What happened to Brother Wang?" Footsteps approached from behind. A refined voice called out, "Brother Gao, you have come too." Without turning around, Wang Tijian already knew that the person behind him was his old partner of many years, a skilled practitioner who had trained for several years, and was also somewhat famous for his martial arts. "Oh, there really are people among the soldiers. This is indeed knowledge from the Western Han Dynasty. This is knowledge from the Western Han Dynasty." A burly man with a beard casually walked to the side. Ziz referred to a dead person. "It doesn't matter how strange it is." Wang Tijian let out a cold laugh and said indifferently, "This is also a dead person. At the very least, it can't be exposed." The big man stroked his coarse beard and chuckled, saying, "What are you all looking at? Don't you know if the rich man thus took a break?" A middle-aged man dressed as a scholar walked out of the cabin, and upon seeing this situation, his expression slightly changed. He scolded the maids and servants. "This is Master Zhou. It is said to be a trusted person of that high-ranking official." It was indeed he who hired Wang Tijian and the others, and traveled together with the official's assistant. Reasonably, the little maid named Huang Ying shyly extended her delicate white fingers, pointing at the paper and the flower. Master Zhou, seeing that Wang Tijian and the others were also standing here, found it somewhat strange. When he heard the little maid say this, he couldn't help but glance over. As a result, he saw the ice block and the figure inside the ice, naturally showing a face full of surprise. But then he frowned and said, "Wait, it's just a dead person. There's no point in looking at it more. Everyone disperse and get back to work. Do I really have to call Butler Wang?" When it came to the end, the scholar's tone became a bit harsher. At the mention of Butler Wang, the maids and servants immediately turned pale. They quickly scattered in all directions. The remaining 2 or 3 crew members also sneaked away quietly. Wang Tijian and the big man exchanged glances, feeling that it wasn't good to stay here. They were about to leave together. However, the taller and sturdier big man couldn't help but take another look at the river before Lin Meidong's footsteps. Suddenly, his expression changed. He exclaimed, "How is that possible? That person is still alive." Upon hearing this, Wang Tijian and Master Zhou were both startled. They looked over but found nothing unusual. The figure remained motionless in the guest area. Lin Meidong looked at the big man with a doubtful gaze. "There must be no mistake. That person just moved his eyelids. I really saw it," the big man said confidently. "Brother Gao wouldn't lie to us. It seems that person really isn't dead." Wang Tijian unhesitatingly chose to believe his companion's words. Master Zhou was somewhat skeptical upon seeing this. However, after thinking for a while, he shook his head and said, "Even if that person is indeed not dead, it has nothing to do with us. We shouldn't cause any trouble for the rich young lady." Since the other ships have not made any fuss, we need not inquire further. Wang Tiqian listened to this and felt no anger or injustice in his heart. The person among the soldiers looked indeed quite strange. Not letting him board was exactly what he wanted. After all, having roamed the rivers and lakes for a long time, his vigilance against such oddities was far stronger than that of ordinary people. The Taoist priest was tall, and a hint of calculation appeared on Master Zhou's face. Saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda, and my mother has always been compassionate. Since I am not dead, I might as well go up and talk. A sweet voice suddenly came from the cabin. Then, a beautiful young girl dressed in a brocade shirt walked out. Behind her was the maid Huang Ying, who had just left, now lowering her head and following behind. It seemed she was the one who informed the young lady of this matter. Second miss. This isn't very good, is it? Letting a stranger on board? Master Zhou saw this girl, respectfully lost a courtesy, but the hesitation on his face. There's nothing wrong with that, since this person survived a great calamity in the army, and even met us. It can be considered a merit for our family. Anyway, there are plenty of empty rooms on the ship. We can just arrange it. Are we really so many people that we're afraid of a dying person? The woman said softly, her expression showing an undeniable confidence. All right. Since the young lady has instructed this, I will call someone to go down and rescue him. After pondering for a moment, he could only clasp his fists in agreement. The girl from Jing Mountain smiled slightly and said nothing more, leading the maid back to the cabin. Meanwhile, Master Zhou looked at the cabin, his brows tightly furrowed. The two of you also heard. It seems this person really needs to be rescued. However, this ice block is so huge, I'm afraid it will trouble you two again. Master Zhou said with a wry smile. It's all right. I may not have strength in other areas, but I have plenty of it. Gao Dafu said nonchalantly. Wang Tiqian, however, re-examined the gent soldier. Then he slowly nodded, indicating there was no problem, not knowing how long he had been in the dark. After a splitting headache, Hanli finally woke up from his daze, but he had not yet opened his eyes. In his ears, he first heard the voice of a young girl. When will the old master wake up? It has already been 2 days and 2 nights. Is he really okay? Miss, you have been waiting for my response. Humph, what do you little girl know? I only have a slight understanding of it. How would I know when he will wake up? But this person's illness is indeed strange. Clearly, his face is frighteningly pale, signs of a lack of vital energy. Yet after selling the pot, he seems to be in great shape. It seems his body is much stronger than an ordinary person's. This truly puzzles me. An old voice said somewhat gloomily. Heh, I think the old master probably pulled the wrong wheat. The girl seemed very familiar with the old master. She even started to tease him, not to mention in the past. Whenever you people had a headache or fever, wasn't it all treated by the old master? There has never been a mistake. When has there ever been a mistake? Perhaps this person has a strange illness that no one has ever seen before. I'm not a doctor. What's so strange about not being able to tell? The old man seemed a bit embarrassed, but still mustered the courage to say. Upon hearing this, Hanli felt that he was lying on a comfortable bed, with a thick mattress underneath, and a smooth quilt covering him. His body felt unusually warm. Listening to the conversation between the old man and the young man, Hanli felt slightly relieved. It seemed he was not only rescued by some mortals, but had finally entered a safe territory. However, his current situation was indeed dire. The moment he woke up, he used the divine stone to probe the condition within his body. As a result, he gasped in shock, his heart filled with bitterness. After escaping the pursuit of the sky blue Sanus and fleeing thousands of miles away, he unsealed the time and immediately jumped into the river. Using the technique called feigning death from the great eye god, he sealed himself in a layer of ice, then let the ice float downstream. This was how he escaped the sudden pursuit of the mysterious person. But now the physical condition is truly terrible. It's even worse than he expected, not only because of the excessive use of blood shadow, which has drained his vital energy, leaving his body extremely weak. Moreover, the loss of his true essence is even more severe. This has caused his cultivation level to drop several tiers again. He has even fallen to the level of the refining stage. In this case, without a good 5 or 6 years of quiet recovery, he can forget about regaining his previous cultivation level. With a sigh filled with tears, he suddenly seemed to remember something urgently. He hurriedly checked the state of his inner self. As a result, he found his soul in a state of chaos. It was also weak and faintly unconscious. This made him feel a slight relief in his heart. However, the second reason for his return also gave him a headache. Although the distance is too far, making it impossible to sense accurately, it is evident that the second reason has not been eliminated as he expected. By the sudden killing of the great immortal, there remains a subtle connection that seems to be both broken and unbroken, letting him know that this reason still exists. But if he cannot recall this reason within a certain period, once the other party becomes independent, the consequences for him can be imagined. It's becoming increasingly clear about one's own mistakes. The only thing that doesn't make him anxious is that once he regains his original cultivation, the initial cultivation of the second reason could never be his opponent. Finding the other party and subduing them again is not a difficult task for him, he thought to himself. Suddenly, he transmitted a message in the sea of divine stones. How long have I been unconscious in the army? I just arrived near Daijin. Is there any major event happening? You finally woke up. You've been drifting at the bottom of the river for over a year. Only when the magical power attached to the ice was exhausted did the ice flow to the surface of the water. However, Han kid, your condition is really not good. The big-eyed deity responded lazily. I don't even know how my own body is doing. The situation is not looking good. But this time, I managed to escape by a stroke of luck. It's a small blessing amidst the misfortune. There's nothing much to complain about. After all, in that situation, not everyone can slip away from the hands of the cultivators after the resonance. Panmi smiled slightly, and instead said with some pride, Hey, you seem to be quite open-minded. You seem to be quite open-minded about it. However, I haven't asked you yet about the matter of the spirit treasure. Why have you never mentioned it to me? No wonder there were a few times during my seclusion that I was left outside the closed-door meditation room. I have long wanted to personally study the true spirit treasure. Enough with the nonsense. Later, find some time to bring that small cauldron for me to take a closer look. The great Eye Spirit Lord's tone changed. He said somewhat gloomily, Of course, it's no problem for me to let the senior study it, but I can only take the cauldron out after I recover my cultivation. Calmly said, All right, since you agreed, let it be. However, there is indeed a cultivator on the ship, but she is just a little girl at the chair refining stage, 2 or 3 levels. Not worth mentioning at all. Just keep a little for yourself. The great Eye Spirit Lord's tone softened, and then he stopped speaking. Chair refining stage, 2 or 3 levels. Han's heart sank, but he still opened his eyes. He was startled, but still opened his eyes. The old master woke up and called out, and he saw, in front of his bed, a girl who looked only about 14 or 15 years old. A girl who looks to be only 14 or 15 years old. As soon as he opened his eyes, he exclaimed with great joy, This girl has fair and tender skin, a round face and big eyes. Quite adorable indeed. Yes, I naturally saw that. And on a chair, beside the girl, sat an old man in a gray robe, appearing to be in his 60s, with kind brows and gentle eyes. He was quietly observing him. Old master, you stay with him for now. I will go notify the young lady. Before Hanli could ask anything, the girl chattered a few words to the old man, and then dashed out in a flash. Hanli was momentarily taken aback. Heh, this girl has such a personality. Young master, please don't take offense. The old man shook his head, and gave Hanli a kind smile. No, it was you two who saved me. Where is this place? This humble one is Hanli, likewise smiling. After sitting up, he slowly asked,